Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
It is 8:30, so I propose that we begin with the roll call.
Carlson,
Yes.
Boziger. Vasconcelos.
Here.
General Sailor.
Here.
Walker.
Here.
Westerberg.
Here.
Bajan. Absent. Willett. Absent. We do have a quorum.
Thank you. Rebecca, I see you're first on the agenda
Yes, I am. Let me,
before the minutes.
oh, I think maybe we
Should
should,
we approve the minutes first?
I think we should.
Okay. So we will jump to item number 3, approval of the minutes. Do I have a motion to do so?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I move we approve the minutes.
Any
Second.
discussion?
Second.
Hearing none, call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Rebecca, moving back to item number 2.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being here, and also thank you for participating on our airport commission. As many of you have been here longer than I have, and I've been here a decade. You really have been the continuity that has kept the airport going. As you know, these are all appointed positions. Thank you, Russ, for reminding me that I should silence my phone. That could have been me. But you're the continuity that keeps the airport commission going. You provide great insight and strategic direction for the airport and our team. And so I'm really grateful for that. Several years ago, we transitioned from 5-year terms to 3-year terms. And so we have ended up in a situation where we have multiple members of our commission with their terms expiring this June, in fact, this month. So I do not know who my new commissioners are going to be, but I do not want to miss a chance to thank all of you who have been such an important part of our commission for so long. So we have a little token of appreciation for you. So I'm going to just say a few words. Russ was on our interview committee when they hired me. So thank you, a huge thank you.
We made the right choice.
Well, it's a little late now. It's a decade in, but thank you for all of your hard work. And I know that you have been integral to the airport over the years. Frank is a relatively newcomer. I can't even remember how many years you've been on the airport commission. 2 terms. But again, thank you for your support and guidance. And Meg, it has been an absolute pleasure working with you. Meg was also on the commission. I remember meeting with you when I was interviewing and considering this position, and you were instrumental in that and so many things since then. So thank you.
Thank you.
And General Sailor, thank you for your service. You were also on the hiring committee, and we got to work together quite a bit when they were thinking about retiring the A-10. So appreciate all your work on that. And then Mayor Nancolis, 2 terms. And appreciate all of your work in providing that more regional perspective to our commission.
It's been an honor to serve.
So
Thank you, Rebecca.
there's some,
know when we will learn whether.
I'm thinking it will be in the next month.
All right.
I'm thinking it will be in the next month. We do not have a July airport commission meeting.
Right.
So I expect that they'll have all of the commission appointments finalized in July in time for our August meeting. But I didn't want to miss the chance to say thank you to anyone. And I am very appreciative for all that you have all done on behalf of the airport and for me personally. So does anyone have anything that they want to say? I mean, you guys all have comments, I guess, at the end. You can.
We do.
All right.
Welcome, Mayor.
Thank you. Sometimes the traffic cooperates and sometimes it doesn't.
Yes.
So, I
And welcome,
apologize.
Councilman. All right, we will proceed into your report, Rebecca.
All right. It feels like it has been a short month. We've had quite a bit of activity out on the airfield this last month. I think probably the most interesting, most of it was pretty routine. We did have one unusual occurrence where we had a unexpected runway closure because we had a vehicle accident at one of the drive gates, and so that caused us to close the runway. Other than that, it was all routine and planned maintenance. If you probably can't really see it as you drive by, but our parking garage construction is coming along quite nicely. Several improvements. You can see the exit plaza is really starting to take shape. Also, the electrical transformer has been installed, and then the footings have been installed for the columns that are going in. And Taxi Lane Sierra continues to be moving right along as well. We're working on some stormwater improvements as a part of that project. And then this Vail, the voluntary airport low emission, this is for some additional equipment over by UPS. And this will be finalized in June. Memorial Day travel, we do not have the throughput numbers from the TSA checkpoint this past weekend, so I cannot report on how busy we were. We did have sufficient parking, which we were all grateful for. I think we were all wondering if this was going to be the weekend that we were completely full and overflowing, but we did have sufficient parking, so that's good. And we are continuing on contingency planning for additional parking, but I think that overall it went smoothly. It seems like we've come out of COVID and everyone has remembered that we have an airport. And so I was presented with the Economic Impact Award for leadership by Leadership Boise. And as we all know, the airport is an amazing economic generator for the region. Over $1 billion a year in economic impact. And so it was great to be recognized by Leadership Boise. We also had an opportunity to celebrate new air service with a new airline. Avelo started their new service to Burbank. Service is twice a week. And then as soon as Avelo started this new route, Alaska started it as well. So that does add a new dot to our map. It was a great event. Our team did a fantastic job putting it together. We also have been in the process of working on some promotions. We have some duty managers. These were, you may remember from the organization assessment, these were positions that were identified as kind of a missing piece in our organization. And so we have promoted 2 of our employees to this position. Colton Earmark was previously a supervisor in operations, and Evan was previously a supervisor in our terminal maintenance. And so we've been able to promote 2 different people from 2 different sections to make sure that we really have that very broad oversight in those evening and weekend hours. And then with those promotions, we were able to promote 2 other specialists to supervisors. We do have a great partnership with TSA. It takes a lot of things going and a lot of partners to really make the airport run smoothly. And TSA recognized several of our employees for their work. These are employees who work in our baggage screening system, and they work very closely with TSA to make sure that all of our security checks, inspections, and random inspections of bags go well. So that they recognized Kathy, Emmanuel, and Andre. And I do like to, every once in a while, put out to the commission just some of the compliments that we receive, because the airport is very visible in the community and it is an important part of our city. So I just wanted to share some positive feedback that was completely unsolicited, but appreciated nonetheless by our team.
People decide that TSA is pure joy.
True story.
Thank you very much.
Well, and our TSA does a really great job. And I think that's one of the things that makes Boise special is the partnership that we do have here. We are hosting a public meeting. It's going to be on June 7th. It'll actually be at the Best Western Inn on Vista because we do not have enough parking here at the terminal to accommodate all of that parking. But basically, we're planning some runway safety improvements and giving people an opportunity to provide input into that study. I suspect it will be more pilots that are interested in this than the general public, but you never know. So that again will be on June 7th. These are basically to review the improvements that were recommended by FAA in part of our master plan.
Yes.
Rebecca, is that the project that I got an email on yesterday talking
Yes.
about realignment of the runways?
Yes.
Yeah, you'll get some pilot input on that.
Okay. Well, the FAA tells us that this will make it better. So you can let us know. We'll look forward to that. As predicted, April enplanements were up. I think when we met last, I reported that I had the preliminary throughput numbers. I was guessing it might be about 6%. Turns out it was closer to 10% increase in enplanements compared to 2019 and up 59% from last year, which brings our total enplanements for the year up 4%. And again, this will push us much further ahead in our recovery than most of our peers that are still seeing about 90% recovery on average. These are our operating revenues. We always look at our top 10 operating revenues. You can see mostly it is, and I'll see if I can't move this so we can see all of it. Most of it is related to increases in passenger travel, so concessions, rental cars. So again, most of our expense increases are related to in parking management, for example, increased shuttle operations. Some of the things are timing. Engineering services is because we're doing more planning studies looking at basically how do we best utilize the infrastructure that we have. So really there's nothing that's tremendously out of line in either of these things. And that concludes my director's report.
Very good. Are there any questions regarding the director's report?
I have one. It looked like today that we had an unusually large number of available parking spaces. Is there a reason for that, or is it just hard to say?
It's hard to predict, and I think that's what we found post-pandemic because our market has changed so much. Pre-pandemic, we had a different mix of business and leisure. And now, you know, the pandemic, I think, has changed the business travel patterns. And so we don't ever really feel like we know how full it's going to be. I think there have been times where we've expected, for example, over President's Day weekend to have pretty average utilization of parking, and it was off the charts. And then there are times where we think it will be higher, and we have more capacity than we've expected. So, you know, we're trying to make sure that we have capacity available for when people need it. We have been promoting that people should take Uber and Lyft when possible, because we are concerned that we might not have enough parking if people did not do that. So it's just impossible to predict at this point. And until we see our throughput numbers for the weekend, we won't really know. The other thing I would add is that as the week goes on, we do tend to see the lots fill more on Wednesdays and Thursdays tend to be our busier days because they're overlapping from both sides of the weekend. So.
Does the airport track like the numbers of taxis and Lyft drivers and those kinds of services?
We sure do because they pay us.
Have
Yes.
you seen that go up since you?
We have seen our yes, we have seen those revenues go up. I'd have to ask, check with Kathleen, but I could get that for
I
commission.
was just curious. if
Yeah.
you're tracking
Oh, yes,
those.
yes, yeah.
Other questions? All right, then we'll move into commissioner comments, and I'm going to start to my left with Bill.
Well, we had a pretty big trip well, we started out about 2 weeks ago. We flew from Boise, eventually to Sicily, to Palermo. We flew from Boise to Chicago, Chicago to Zurich, and then Zurich to Palermo, and that went really smoothly. However, we were flying back on Memorial Day on Monday, and our flight we were scheduled to leave from Castagna, which is Sicily's second largest city. Our Lufthansa flight ended up being diverted to Malta because of high winds, they said. Didn't quite understand it because the pilot said the tailwinds were too great to land. And I'm confused. I got to talk to you pilots because usually it's my understanding you land into the wind. So I'm not sure what the tailwinds had to do with it. Maybe there was something lost in the translation. But anyway, our flight was 4 hours late, so we missed our connection in Munich. So we spent the night in Munich, and then we had to get retested to get back into the US for the COVID-19 deal, and that was problematic. And so, long story short, we got in a day late after traveling 24 hours, got in about 11 last night to the Boise airport. And by the way, there were about, the taxi lane was full at that time. That kind of surprised me. But anyway, once we did get on the plane, we finally got home. So it was good to be back at the Boise airport.
Oh, well, thank you, Madam Chair. Let me just take a moment and express to my fellow commissioners and all of the members of the administration that I've enjoyed the privilege of serving on the commission for the last, I think it's really been 14 years. But during that time, I'm pleased to, in my own right, and I think I've only missed 2 meetings during that time. So that tells you I've enjoyed being here. I've enjoyed your company. My focus largely has been on the airfield side. We have a wonderful terminal here, and I hear a lot about it. But I spend most of my experience on the backside, and I've learned to appreciate the folks that keep that running for those of us that fly in and out of it. My interest in this commission and this administration won't end with my departure. I will continue to be a tenant, so I'll continue to work with a lot of you and appreciate the service that you provide. So again, thank you, Rebecca. Again, we made the right choice 14 years ago, whatever it was. I got to know many of you, and I appreciate you. I feel very good about this organization and very good about the service I enjoyed with you. And I feel very good about leaving at this point in time, knowing that it's in good hands.
Thank you. All right.
Yes, I would just add on to Russ's comments that it has been a real pleasure. I've learned so much about this airport and the amount of pride that everybody who works here has in the airport. Few entities have such pride. Everyone is working together. I've been very impressed with everything from top to bottom. And in comparisons, I had the opportunity to fly into Burbank yesterday or Friday. And what a treat in comparison to LAX. It's just night and day. And if you have the opportunity to go into LAX or need to go into Los Angeles, by all means, go into Burbank. It's a old-timey airport. It's tiny in comparison to, say, even this. I imagine there's more flights going out just because of its location, but it really looks like it was built in 1930 and remains in that same sort of atmosphere. And the flight on Avelo was just fine. No frills, it's like getting on a bus. And if you expect nothing more, then that's exactly what you want and exactly what you get. I'll fly it again and again. I don't know if I'll ever be able to be persuaded into going into LAX after coming in and out of Burbank.
Were you on that new airline?
I was.
Avelo?
Yeah, it was good. That was, you know, inexpensive, put it that way.
Yes. Wonderful. Thank you, Joe.
The two previous commissioners, it's been a real pleasure to serve on the commission. Been on for a number of years. Always worked with the airport in mind. Role in the military, obviously, we share runways. Much of what happens out here is military. That's been my primary focus, is to make sure that things that Rebecca, the airport, does don't conflict or hinge on what the Guard is trying to do across the way. For way more years than I've been on the commission, there's been a great relationship with the airport. The last 2 or 3 directors tremendously with them. So it's a good partnership. Rebecca's doing an outstanding job, as is all the staff. Got to know a lot of them over the years. Michelle, I don't know. You missed your monthly letter of invite, Michelle, but I just appreciate all of you and thank you. And I know the airport's doing great.
Mayor,
Well, good morning, everybody.
good morning.
So good to be here with you. And again, I'm glad that I'm able finally to be here more regularly. I'm glad last year is behind me. And I really enjoyed this. Again, Rebecca and staff and everyone, gosh, what a great example. One of the things I enjoyed a lot was when you went through your evaluations and your, how your operations worked and so forth. I picked up a lot of things from there that took back to the city of Caldwell. And, so it was a really good thing for me to learn and hear some of those things, how the big folks do it, over here on the side of the valley. But it is helpful, and there is a regional value. I can tell you that as we visited with folks that were looking at coming to Caldwell, and these are big companies, at least for us they are, but even I think for any area, when you have a 400,000 square foot building, land in the middle of your community that brings 400 jobs, and that's a big deal for all of us. And in all the conversations we had with those folks, Boise Airport, even though we have our own, it's different, right? That's an executive type airport. We have a lot of private traffic. We have some folks like Jamie land there all the time. I don't know if she does or not, but what I mean is, private pilots. But what we're seeing a lot more of over there is some executive type travel into our airport, but for their employees, this is the airport, right? And so any company that is coming into the valley talks about quality of life, access to transportation. The city of Boise is a huge asset to the city of Caldwell. And I think over the years, Caldwell has become an asset as well to the city of Boise. It always wasn't that way. Just as a side note, downtown Caldwell was rated the #1 outside destination point with the plaza downtown above the village, which we thought was pretty cool. So that was a good way to leave my tenure over there. But I guess what I'm saying is, you mentioned the regional piece of it, but it is really important. And we're grateful for all that happens in the valley. And this airport is a bright and shining star. But we talk about economic development and to the quality of life of our people. And it's just been a pleasure to be a part of it, as well as these folks sitting here just don't get any better. So thank you.
Thank you. Jamie?
Thank you. I'm sure I can speak for Bill and Councilman Badgett. If you guys aren't here in August, it will be different. So thank you. Having me be the veteran at 4 years is a little bit scary. So we'll see if that happens. But just wanted to thank you. I don't see you in August. That's all I have.
Great.
I just want to say thank you to, cumulative decades of service to this commission. There's no way that we can do our job at the city of Boise without these commissions. It's not possible. And this commission has been, several people have commented, a model of how it should be a model of the types of input that we get, and a model of the steady long-term experience that comes from many of your service. So, you know, I know not missing 2 meetings in 14 years is a pretty big deal. Showing up ready to dig into the director's reports and to share your experiences over, again, decades when you add it up among you is a big deal. So, you know, on behalf of the 250 or so thousand people in Boise and another 500,000 in the surrounding communities, just heartfelt gratitude. Thank you very much for all of your service here.
Well, I echo everybody else's comments. I've been on the commission for a very long time and I've seen this airport thrive, especially under your leadership, Rebecca. There was a noticeable shift in direction when you came in, which was what we were all hopeful for, and you over-delivered on our expectations. We've had some highlights. Getting bonding back was huge. Russ was very helpful in that. Getting the tower approved and activated, huge. And I followed in after Barbara West, and I see Gordon Brookover every month at the Air Club, and Gordon always asks me whether the commission is in good hands because he served as a commissioner for very many years, and it was always really an important role for him that he took very seriously. Gordon is 99 years old.
Wow.
Quite an accomplishment in and of itself, I think, and quite sharp. So thank you very much. This is a shining star. I think it's been great for you to get recognition on behalf of this incredible team that you lead, and you're always humble about the fact that you're the face, but everybody else here does lots of heavy lifting. Amy was one of the first people I met when I came, and she gave me a very comprehensive tour of all the airport grounds. It was fabulous and really helped get me to understand, because I'm not a pilot. I've only participated as a passenger. Used to be corporate years ago when I was with the Rita and we had private, but mostly commercial. So thank you very much. It's been a real privilege. And I too will miss seeing everybody every month if that is what the mayor chooses to do. I did travel this month as well. I traveled to Spain, and I'm happy to say that everything was flawless. I had no tailwind excuses and we didn't get delayed. But I will say the whole experience of COVID testing in a foreign country is really interesting, because what you do is you go online. For us, it's the Spain's health department, and you schedule an appointment with a local physician. So we were in Marbella, which is in Malaga, the Spanish Riviera southern coast. And so the physician comes to your hotel room and administers your COVID test and waits for the instant results. And then you get the official document, and that allows you to get back into the United States. I'd never had a physician come to my hotel room before, so it was a new experience. So, thank you, Rebecca. And as always, thank you for your leadership.
Madam Chair, I forgot,
Yes, Mayor.
I did travel to another planet.
Oh.
I traveled to New York, and the comments about TSA here are spot on. You know, they're friendly here. They really are. And, you know, we went through Denver and then into New York, and it's, you know, I'm always the kind of person that says, good morning, you know, hi. No response, nothing. I mean, it's just business here. Good morning, and you get a good morning back. And anyway, sorry, but I did travel outside the world that we live in anyway.
Thank you. Very good. So we are going to have the opportunity to have a deep dive into the budget. That should be wonderful.
So Kathleen Watkins, who you've met before, she's our Deputy Director of Finance and Business Administration. She's going to run through this presentation. I will be your Vanna White, Kathleen. I'll just forward through your slides if you would like. And we'll go from there.
All right. It's been quite a while since I've had a chance to speak to the commission here. I thank COVID for that. So our budget highlights, I just wanted to go through and show you some of the metrics that we use to compare ourselves to other airports, which is one of the things that we do. We have a set of peer airports and we like to look and see what's going on at other airports to give us a sense of where we are in the mix. And then I'll go ahead and break down the FY23 operating budget and discuss the changes that we see there. The budget isn't set yet. That's, what is that, July, August, I think it formally gets set, but we're far enough down that we have some good budget numbers now. And then I'll discuss the fiscal year 23 budgeted capital projects, which I'm sure you've heard a ton about, but I'll discuss the various funding sources that we'll be using to cover that. So one of the first metrics we look at, and all these comparative metrics are from fiscal year 21. In fiscal year 21, we were at 4.06, which was, and I guess I should tell you what cost per enplanement is. Cost per enplanement passenger is the revenues that you get from airlines and divided by the number of emplanements. And so you'll see here, and this is a metric that airports use across the board that kind of tout their CPE. Anyway, so you've got the fiscal year 19, which was at 353. That was a very good year for us, lots of emplanements, so that gave us a smaller number. The fiscal year 21 was still pretty good because we were at 406. But when you look and can start comparing Boise to other airports, you've got Reno, which is a strong comparison for us, and they're at 1120. And our medium hub average is 1424. So it tells you what a bargain it is to come into Boise. We've done that by trying to keep our fixed costs low, although we're feeling they're a little bit too low. So we're going to try to increase that and get the airlines to contribute a little bit more, but that's what cost per enplanement is. Here's another comparison. This is to our larger group here. This has, you look at Providence, Oklahoma City, Tulsa, Tucson, Colorado Springs, Grand Rapids, El Paso, I think I'm missing somebody, Des Moines, Charleston, and so on and so forth. But you can see that when you compare to all those other airports, our cost per enplanement is still very low at 406. Go to the next one.
They're not on the same slides as you guys.
I think I just printed stuff out of order and mixed it up just to keep it interesting. Hey, look at that. Some notes I had. So this is a comparison of our fiscal year 21 operating revenues. And you can see that we really did pretty good at keeping our operating revenues high, even in a pandemic year. That's a tribute to some of our other sources of non-aeronautical land that we rent, how well our concessions did compared to, as you see other airports. And so that was pretty good that we've done a good job of maximizing our sources of revenue in the pandemic.
The other thing I would add to this is, we always want to be an affordable airport, so we don't want to be the most expensive, so therefore our revenues are not going to be the highest. We do this by keeping our rates reasonable.
And then our operating expenses, these are lower than our operating revenue for fiscal year 21. The gap there was covered by our pandemic funds, in case that gives anybody heartburn. But these are the operating expenses we had for fiscal year 21. And you can see we're just kind of middle of the board there, pretty good on our operating expenses for last year at 36.6. Depth to enplaned passengers, sort of an interesting metric we've just started looking at, and that's how much debt airports hold. Ours might be a little artificially low there, and the reason for that is that we refinance some of our bonds. But as you can see, that we aren't very highly leveraged. I'm sure Charleston here probably they have just begun a very large capital program, so that's why they stick out there. We should have taken them out. Probably. Embarrassing for them, but anyway, they're quite high. But I did do a quick and dirty calculation, and even with our 2 bonds that will start coming due, it'll only raise us about $1.80, and our debt service is still keeping us very low just with the 2 bonds that we have out now. Okay, and so here's then that brings us to the fiscal year 23 budget. And this is what we're budgeting for, about 43 million, 0.8 million in revenue, about 22.36 in expenses, and 118.1 in capital expenses. As you can imagine, we've got a lot of those this year. So I'll try to break this down a little bit. This kind of shows you where we're at in our revenue mix, in our 43.8 million. This tells you where we're at. So, you know, our parking's is 19%, airlines 13%. Got some miscellaneous stuff in there too. Car rentals are 13%. Our industrial land rent is at 12%. PFC is 19%. Customer facility charges at 5%. Grants 14%. And terminal concessions at 3%. So we've got a really nice mix there of different revenue sources. So when one goes down, you know, we'd like to keep another one steady. The industrial land rent really helped us throughout the pandemic because that was pretty steady. And then this just is a breakdown just globally of what our expense budget looks like. As you can see, most of it's capital, which you would expect to make, you know, our job is to maintain our airfield, and that's very expensive. So we've got the 121 there. I'll break that down a little bit further too. It's a little higher, obviously, than it usually is. Our personnel budget is about 9%, and our maintenance and operations is another 14%. And here I broke down the maintenance and operations so you get a sense of where we spend our money. A lot of it's police and fire. You've got a 15% to police, 14% to fire. And that covers those contracts, but also all the personnel costs that are that transfer through to us. We've got utilities, R&M, repair and maintenance, our indirect costs. Those are the costs that go to the city for our legal, our HR, a lot of the services that they provide to us. Parking is another 6%. We've got professional services of 10%. That's anything from, you know, our policing, security guards to, you know, legal that we have to hire, consultants, all sorts of different things go into that. We've got fleet services is just 3% and insurance 2.2%. Right. Get my glasses out. Okay. Operating expense increases. Our operating expenses increased 4.6 million from fiscal year 22, and these are budget numbers. So in our personnel, we saw an increase of 3.4 million. That was our largest increase, but I think we've already spoken about the need for more personnel, and that's adding 25 new folks to our budget. But it's also that the city's struggling with the cost of living, and they are giving some adjustments and trying to retention bonuses and stuff that got budgeted in this year. So that gets us to 3.4 million. Only 2.1 of it are the new positions. The rest of it are a variety of other increases that are flowing through. The minor equipment, the large increases there is that ops needs new radios. So that's going to come through about 225,000 for our brand new radios. And Gentech, which is our security cameras, they need a new SAM. Somebody tell me what that is, some sort of piece of computer equipment, and that's about 50,000. So that's a server, I think. It's going to be so sad that they don't know that. We're seeing increases in police and fire for the very same reasons that we're seeing increase on personnel on our side, is that the costs are just going up for individuals. And then minor software is interesting. You'll probably see this if you're on other boards, other places, that most of software places are going from purchasing software to licenses. And so it kind of moves it in your budget from being a capital type expense into a minor software type expense. So that's why that increased there that year. And then this is a big part, but I suspect most of you have seen a lot about our capital projects because that's the main thing going on here. These are the largest capital projects we have going into our 118 million. The one is the rental car garage design and construction. That's 64 million. Most of that will be bonded. Taxiway, Delta and A3 relocation is another 13 million. I think the major source of funding for that is grants and PFCs. We've got the Concourse A apron. Matt's doing that to help us get ready to build Concourse A. So he's working on the aprons first as he can right now. And that's another 8.5 million. Taxiway W extension, is another 4, and various runway improvements are another 5.5. So funding sources that we're using for this, we're going to have about $21.2 million in grant funding, which is obviously a large number, but we're going to be starting to get funding from the infrastructure bill, as well as the regular airport improvement funds that we get. And then we have applied for some discretionary funding as well. Our passenger facility charge funding is about 11.4. The CFC funding is going to be another 4 million, and our operating cash flow, which includes the $64 million in bonds, is another 81 million. So that's how we have structured our capital program. That was fast. Have any questions?
Yes, what is the amount of infrastructure dollars that the airport is receiving?
So it's a little bit confusing because there are a couple different types, but we are guaranteed to get around 6.5 million every year for 5 years. And then there's another couple of parts, I believe, of the infrastructure bill that are going to be used for terminal type projects. So it kind of expands the type of projects. I understand it's been like 300% or something over applied for. So we'll see what the FAA does with that, but we don't really have a good sense. No airport has a really good sense of who's going to get the money and how. It is broken out into hub size. So we'll be in the medium hub size category. So we'll be competing against other medium hub airports. So that's a bit of an unknown. We've got that going on. And I think there was some other little discretionary type fundings as well. So we'll see if we can get any of those, but we're hoping, yeah.
The industrial land grant from your revenue source, is that what Meg is talking about?
No, she's talking about the infrastructure bill that gave us some grant funds. And those can be used for pretty much, well, any sort of infrastructure type building. A lot of it can be used on airfield, but some of it, which is a bit unique to this funding source, if we apply for it, could be used on terminal, which you generally can't use like our airport improvement grants for the terminal. You can usually just use those for the airfield. So this has expanded it a bit as well. So
what's the industrial land grant?
So industrial land rent is all of the revenue that we have coming in from our hotels, Chevron, rent of the various hangars around the airfield, House of Hounds, 2 Men in a Truck. So a variety of different leases that we had, and they were pretty steady throughout COVID, which was good. We didn't have very many bankruptcies. 1 or 2 small folks had to bail out, but for the most part, it was a good steady funding source for us.
Yes.
I'm assuming the $3.4 million increase in personnel costs is response to the recommendation we heard a couple of meetings ago to add personnel.
Yes.
I would also hope that part of that money goes to increase the salaries of the existing employees.
Yes, also, yeah, that's also in there. Yes, and thank you for bringing that up, Russ. Somebody write that down.
Well, just to clarify, you said 2.1 million is new positions and 1.3 then would be to raise the base for others. Yeah, yes.
On your operating expenses, I think one of your items was like minor. There's new snow plows, fire trucks. Do they fall in that category? Or is that a category?
If they're large pieces of equipment like that, they go into a different line there in capital equipment. Yeah, and we spread the cost of those from a financial perspective over the number of years of service that we have. So it's a slightly different, but they aren't in that category.
That leads me to a follow-up that's probably for Rebecca. With the airport becoming a medium hub now and the expansion on Horrible Ramp, terminal, will that change any requirement for the fire department here as far as numbers of trucks or
No.
response time? Or anything?
No, the fire requirement is set by your largest aircraft serving the airport on a daily basis. And so the requirement is that the fire department be able to respond to the midpoint of the furthest runway in 2 minutes, 3 minutes. Thank you, Alex. Really, really fast. And so it doesn't change based on that. So if if the configuration of the airfield changed and, that midpoint ended up being further away or they couldn't make it, that's what would change it. Also, if we ended up having a larger aircraft that changed the design standard, we would potentially have to increase the capacity of the fuel trucks or the fire trucks rather, or perhaps increase the number of trucks, but we're not there yet. But thank you.
Just curiosity, what's the largest aircraft coming into does that count on the guard side or is it?
No, it's the largest scheduled aircraft, and I believe it's the FedEx aircraft that comes in. That's our largest aircraft.
The Airbus A300, 600 right now is our design aircraft.
Did you hear that, Frank? It's the Airbus.
Other questions?
Very nicely done. Thank you so much for giving us insights, and we appreciate the amount of work it takes, at least I do, to build a budget of this magnitude, and to not just have increases versus prior year, but to be very thoughtful about what the need is and to tie it to the comprehensive plan and make sure that we're adequately funding.
Just to kind of give the overview. So I have had a council workshop earlier last month to just kind of go over the high level things that we're doing in airport priorities for fiscal year 23. The council will be reviewing this budget during the month of June, hoping that they pass the budget in June, and then it will go into effect in our new fiscal year, October 1. Just as a reminder of the process.
Actually, I'm sure I do have a question. I'm not sure who this is for. So is this, and again, you probably have said it, and I apologize. Is this a special revenue fund because it's blended, or is it considered an enterprise fund?
It's considered an enterprise fund of the city, yeah.
Thank you.
So all of the revenues that we generate at the airport stay at the airport. We are not supported by taxpayer funds at all. And then all of the services that the city provides to the airport, we pay for through other costs. So the indirect costs, our contract with fire and police.
And thank you. Madam Chair, in Caldwell, it's a special revenue fund, which means they're still dedicated, but because we don't have the revenues that you have, it is partially supported by property tax.
That's not uncommon for a smaller airport.
And so I just was, thank you for that clarification. It's not a huge amount, but it is.
No, it's good to reiterate that because people might be watching this and have that exact same question. So it's always good for us whenever we talk about the budget, we should start by talking about the fact that we are an enterprise fund.
Thank you.
Very good. Any other questions or comments? Yeah, thank you, Kathleen. So this is the time of the commission meeting. If there is anybody from the public who would like the opportunity to join us at the podium or online.
Let me check to see if we have anyone in the chat feature. Not have anything in the chat.
All right. No one present. Therefore, we'll call for the adjournment.
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
I move we adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Thank you very much.